What's going on, guys? I am Toxic Jordan. Welcome back to the channel. So the 52nd World Tournament is here, live on Global. Right now we're about 1 day in. So I'll start out this video by just giving you guys a little update on how I've been doing so far. So as you can see here, I'm at 40 wins in a row. Just got my 40th win here. So I do have all the missions completed and stuff. My global ranking is just under 1,000 right now, or I guess under the threshold to be in the top 1,000, and then I am 6th in my local. I don't intend on grinding super hard in this World Tournament for a few reasons that we'll get into as we get through the video here. But yeah, I don't think that I would have tried to grind super hard anyway, just because I have a couple people in my local bracket that are trying pretty hard here. If it will load. So yeah, you can see there, I'm going to catch up to, 4th, 5th, 3rd, maybe soon. But 2nd and 1st star, it seemed like they're going for a bit harsher of a grind. We'll see as the days go on. I do want to try to get top 3, because if you get top 3, then you get the most amount of Satan signatures, which is 100. And then if you go any lower than that, then you start dropping off the amount of Satan signatures that you'll earn, and I want to get as many of those as possible. So I am going to try and shoot for top 3 here local, but that's probably as hard as I'll grind. Hopefully that will also result in me being top 1,000 so I can earn potential orbs. This go-around, last World Tournament, I actually didn't even make it to top 1,000. That was the first World Tournament in a couple years that I didn't end up getting potential orbs from the World Tournament here. Okay, so I didn't collect any of the rewards yet from all of the missions, so we're just going to go ahead and collect it all now. Might as well collect it on camera. I usually like to collect it all at once just so I can see how much I've gotten. Oh, and obviously some of this is from like the Topo celebration stuff, like the, I think... Oh, no, I guess not. Maybe like a couple of these stones, or maybe like a Kai or something, because I think my daily logins were in here as well. So yeah, but mostly all of this is from World Tournament. Okay, good stuff. Good amount of tickets here. Not bad, not bad. We're definitely going to save the tickets. We'll take a look at the banners and stuff, but I'm not going to do any summons in this video. We'll wait until the World Tournament. Oh, there's more. We were over 100. So, okay, there we go. Just a little bit more there. But yeah, so I'm not going to be doing any summons in this video. I'll save those for when we get our rewards and I get more tickets, and then I'll use them all at once. So let's go ahead and switch over to the wiki real quick and take a look at a couple things. So 52nd World Tournament here. I believe we're on the exact same World Tournament as JP now. Oh, actually, I forgot to pull that up. Give me one quick second. All right, here. So we can see that JP is on the 54th World Tournament. We're only on the 52nd. But then, as you can see, it is the same World Tournament because we're getting the same units that are awakening from it. And like this is live on JP right now at the same time that the 52nd one is live for us on Global. There was just some shenanigans very, very early on back in the day that they did with some World Tournaments where they ended up combining things, and Global just missed out on a few. So yeah, we're on a different number, but it is the exact same content, and I assume it's going to continue to be that way from this point forward. So for this World Tournament, it looks like we only have 2 characters EZAing, which is something different. Previously to this, since they started the EZAs, there's been 3 of the World Tournament SSRs getting their EZAs on top of 1 unit from the Dragon Ball Saga Summon banner that would either get an Awakening or an EZA or something like that. So we're only getting 2 this time around. Obviously Yamcha is still available to EZA, but he is not new. We've been able to do that for a couple World Tournaments now, and then obviously Pilaf is still the reward card. Yeah, I've got him rainbowed already, but would love some more copies for his TUR and SSR. Okay, so that's all the basic information there. And then, okay, yeah, and then it looks like Mercenary, or Cyborg Tau, from the Dragon Ball Saga Summon banner is going to be the EZA of choice this time around. So really quick, I have the character kits here. We'll just go over them very, very briefly. I'm not going to go into too much detail on these. One, because I don't really have that much experience using any of the 3 of these units throughout history, so I'm not super well versed in how these characters work. And then 2, because I haven't used them in their EZA state yet, so I don't really want to speak to their power too much. But we'll go ahead and take a look here. I did already read through them, so I can kind of let you know briefly. The Cyborg Tao is really good. He has a similar mechanic to the Int LR Jackie Chun and the Int Demon King Piccolo, where when you are attacking an enemy, if they are hit by your super attack, then you get 50% damage reduction against that enemy for the remainder of the turn. I believe this is the exact same wording that the Int Demon King Piccolo has, the Demon King Piccolo Elder, and then with the Jackie Chun, it's just a little bit more powerful because when you do his Ultra Super, you just get 50% damage reduction. So if there's multiple enemies, you would get the protection against all of them. So his is a little better than this wording, where it's, you know, targeted directly at the character that you attack. But most of the time you're playing against one enemy anyway, so it's not really that big of a difference. Okay, and then if you notice here, he's getting up to an additional 200% stats with each attack received. So as long as you're able to proc this first and then get some of these stats built up, he's going to be really, really impressive. And then if you're able to get this last bit of stats here, he's maxing out at 500% stats, which is kind of insane, especially considering he does still have a 1-turn raise on his super attack effect too. And then on top of all of that, he has an ability that can proc a guaranteed crit here, and then he also has a 70% chance to stun. So yeah, this guy is kind of ridiculous, honestly. I am excited to try and use him. Okay, so this guy I do have a little bit of experience using. He is a pretty good support unit, just because certain teams that he is on, you know, certain cell setups, artificial life forms, Android Cell Saga, things like that, in the past when you were building like extreme class versions of those teams, were pretty lackluster. So for a long time, this was actually a staple unit on those teams because of his support and stuff. And then for just straight up like extreme tech builds as well. And I believe he was on my Worldwide Chaos team. And I think he still is on my Worldwide Chaos team for Ultimate Clash. My extreme tech team is just Worldwide Chaos. So that is actually a buff I haven't thought about until now, that my Ultimate Clash team gets a little bit of a buff here. Sweet. Okay, so yeah, this guy is decent. I would say I'm probably not as good as this Cyborg Tao, but still pretty good. So 200% stats to start. He's giving 30% support to Extreme Class, and then an additional 10% to Artificial Life Forms and Tournament Participants. He gets additional stats if there's a Superclass enemy. Superclass enemies get debuffed. And then he has some damage reduction against one enemy and launches an additional super against 2 enemies, which is really good because of this. He's getting a massive attack and defense raise. So with the guaranteed additional super there, that could be really, really good too. So yeah, I would say build this guy full additional because of that. I mean, I guess dodge would be fine too, but honestly, he really could serve with the defense there. So yeah, he'll be decent for sure. Pretty good support unit. And then last, I would say last but not least, but I think it's actually last and least in this case scenario. So I'm not even going to read the kit because it's almost the exact same thing as what the Cell got here. Their kit skeletons were pretty much the same, so I'm not surprised that their EZAs look very similar. Some of the values are slightly tweaked here. Some of the ways that you proc these things are slightly tweaked, but for the most part, their passives are looking pretty much the same. The biggest difference to note here is that when he's facing 2 or more enemies, instead of getting the additional super, he is getting guard instead. And then when there's one enemy, instead of getting the damage reduction, that's where he gets the additional super. So that's like the biggest difference with their kit. And then he only has the great attack and defense raises because he's also lowering enemies' attack and defense. So there's a little bit, this guy's doing like a little bit more. But I would say that the Cell is better in my opinion. I think that the damage reduction with the massive defense raise is going to be a better combo for those single enemy fights than the guaranteed additional, but then only having the great raise on defense. And there's no damage reduction here. So I think that this guy's going to end up performing a little bit better. And also, like I mentioned when we first started talking about him, he is definitely more needed. This Cell here, like, you know, he's on a villain team. Villains are always more needed. We don't need another Super Saiyan, another Hybrid Saiyan, another Goku family. Like, this guy is completely useless. It's going to be a very rare occurrence where you're building a team of 6 and he is in like the best 6 that you can use. I imagine he's just going to be good for like burst modes that are like really, really stringent on like what characters and categories and stuff you're using, or, you know, things like that. So yeah, you're probably not going to get a ton of use out of this guy, but I am pretty excited for him. And the Tau. Okay, we have spent enough time on the character kits. That is all we're going to talk about for that. Let's get on to the next thing here, which is the banners. So, the banners that have come out this time around looks pretty standard. We have most of the same units that we had on the previous World Tournament, and then 2 of them have obviously been replaced with the new units that are ECAing this World Tournament. So for me specifically, with the 2 copies of the card that you earn during the World Tournament, I won't need either of these guys. I already have the Great Saiyaman Rainbowed, and then the cell is at 90% for me. Other than that, the only other unit on the banner featured that I need to rainbow still is Kale here. So I might not do any summons on this banner this time around. I might wait until the next World Tournament, see if anything else shows up featured that I need copies of, and then Kale should still be around, and I could dump some tickets for that and whatever other unit would be featured. So yeah, I may just skip out on this banner entirely this World Tournament and try and recoup some tickets. And then obviously we have the Dragon Ball Saga summon banner as well. So there's actually a brand new SSR that has come to the surface here. So we have a new Tech Yamcha, which is kind of a bummer. I hate when they add new units to this banner because it is so hard to pull these characters. I still have yet to pull the physical Jackie Chun here. You know, despite my best efforts, I have summoned on I've earned every single possible ticket, minus like 1 or 2 tickets from ranking higher in the tournament, right? But other than that, I have pulled basically every single Dragon Ball Saga summon ticket that I can get, and I just never got him. He was featured for like 7 World Tournaments in a row, slowly sliding, you know, backwards off this list as they added new characters to the front, and then eventually dipping into the unfeatured pool, and I never managed to pull him. So, unfortunately, I still don't have this guy. I will definitely be blowing all of my Dragon Ball Saga summon tickets to try and get him. And then on top of that, I think that there's a couple, like, SRs and rares that I want to collect as well, just to get the base copies of them. But yeah, I still don't have, like, a single copy of that guy. So this World Tournament, we're going to be trying to get the Yamcha and the Jackie Chun there. So let's go ahead and take a look at the Yamcha card here. Obviously, it's not going to be anything insane. Usually the cards that they release on this banner are more for just collection's sake. None of them are usually too powerful, at least until, you know, down the road when they Dokkan Awaken and then eventually EZA. But obviously, with this guy just being a base UR, he's not going to be too impressive, but we can go ahead and take a look here. So, he's getting attack and defense raise on super, medium chance to stun, 150% stats, medium chance to evade, okay, medium chance to crit. It's good that those are just base kit here, because it means when he does awaken, these abilities are going to get even better. Or at the very least stay the same. So that's pretty good to have just as a standard thing. That these are completely unconditional, right? Okay, plus an additional 20% per tournament participants self-excluded on the team. Okay, pretty good. I mean, this is obviously a gigantic category, right? This has everything, like, so many different characters from Dragon Ball, because there was so much stuff with, like, the World Tournament in Dragon Ball, and then, you know, various units throughout the series who competed in World Tournaments, and then also, like, most of the Universe Survival Saga as well. So, yeah, this is a very, very large category. It's going to be super easy to get most, if not all, of this procced. Okay, and then additional 100% when performing a super attack per World Tournament category ally attacking in the same turn. Self-excluded, which means you can get up to 200% if you had 2 other World Tournament category allies performing attacks in the same turn. And this is on a super attack, so it's a multiplicative buff. Potential 200% multiplicative buff could be insane on top of 250% stats with the attack raise. That's definitely not too bad. I mean, obviously his attack is, like, really low because he's got free-to-play stats and he's not Dokkan Awakened. But, yeah, that could be interesting. That could be very, very interesting. I assume that one day this guy is going to hit very, very hard. Okay. And then he gets Key 2 plus an additional chance of evading enemies' attack, including super attack, 10% per Turtle School category ally attacking the same turn, self-excluded. Okay, so up to 4 ki and 20% dodge for the same condition as this. Oh, no, Turtle School, not World Tournament. Interesting. So it's really trying to lock you down to where if you want to use all of this stuff in his kit, you're going to need to use a very specific team, which makes sense. That's usually the way free-to-play units go. Plus an additional attack 100% and chance of performing crit 50% when HP is 86% or less. Okay, nice little bonus of damage on here. So the one bad thing about this unit, right? Typically, you want your damage dealers to be like the major Dokkan Fest units because those are the units that have the insane stats, that have all the insane abilities on their card that are actually just going to be mollywopping the enemies. And a guy like this is probably not going to be hitting that hard. Even once he gets his Dokkan Awakening and eventually his EZA, he's still not going to be comparing to the Dokkan Fests releasing around that same time. So it is unfortunate that he isn't built to be more of like a support type unit and that the only things he's giving stats to are himself. So he is kind of a self-serving unit, which is kind of a bummer. But all things considered, he does look to have a decent kit here. So not bad, not bad. Hopefully we will be able to get a copy of him. Okay, next we're going to take a look at the rankings. Like the rewards that you get for the rankings. So the reason why we're going to take a look at this is simply because there are only 2 units EZAing this time. So there was one thing that I wanted to make a point about. Well, technically 3 units, right? 2 from the normal SSR pool, where normally it had been 3 from that pool. So what this meant previously is as long as you got the top 2,000, then you were earning 120 medals. Basically, enough medals, you know, of the World Tournament announcer to EZA all 4 characters that were going to be receiving their EZAs. Well, now that there's only 3 characters that are going to be EZAing here, you actually only need to get top 50,000 in order to receive enough medals to EZA all the characters. So that is good news. It's looking like these characters are very easily attainable at this point. You can get them very easily from the missions. And then it's looking like they're going to be very easy to maintain EZAing from this point forward too, especially with all the extra Satan signatures that we're getting each World Tournament that you could be stockpiling, buying these units in the shop if you missed out before. Yeah, it's looking very, very possible for a lot of people to finally like rainbow these characters and stuff, so it's very nice. But yeah, this just got even easier because I know like my last World Tournament experience, I worked all weekend. You know, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I had 8-hour shifts at work, so it was really, really tough for me to place even in the top 2,000. I was having to do some insane grinding on the last evening just to get into the top 2,000. And yeah, so I finally understand from the perspective of people that play this game on a more casual level how difficult that can be when you're living the rest of your life. So good news that you now only need to get to top 50,000. Now, the reason that I am talking about that like such permanent news is because I assume that they're going to continue with this trend. Since they have shrunken it down to, you know, only 3 characters EZAing instead of 4. So 2 of the World Tournament SSRs instead of 3 per tournament. I did a little bit of, you know, peeking at this list here of all of the SSRs that we have and did a little bit of calculation. So previously, what they had been doing was they were EZAing 3 characters at a time that had already been Dokkan Awakened, and once every 2 or 3 World Tournaments, they were Dokkan Awakening one World Tournament SSR, like at a time. Well, if they had continued on that trajectory, it would not have been very long before we had every character EZA'd, and we caught up to characters that had not even been Dokkan Awakened yet, were now the next ones slated to get their EZA, and they still hadn't Dokkan Awakened, right? So we were kind of curious what was going to happen with that, coming up with the World Tournaments, but since they have changed the structure, if we were to take a look at where we're at right now, so on the right here we have a list. This is every single one of them that's already Dokkan Awakened. So these are the ones in order that are getting their EZAs. So right now we're here at Cell and Great Saiyan Man, which means the next World Tournament starting would be Mass Saiyan, or I'm sorry, Mighty Mask and Hit. So if we were to count it out, which I already did, so I won't do it again. If we were to count it out where only 2 of these Dokkan Awakened units are EZAing every World Tournament, and then we would just continue on down here from the units that have not yet Dokkan Awakened, and count all the way down to the Int Yamcha, which is the most recent SSR. And then obviously everything I'm explaining right now is completely excluding the World Tournament LRs. Those do not fall under this same system. They have their own system for EZAing over time, so we skipped counting any of those units. But other than those units, if we were to get 2 EZAs for every World Tournament, it would take 11 World Tournaments to finally get to the int Champa here and run out of units to be able to EZA. And if from this point forward, they start... so with the Dokkan Awakenings, there's a couple that aren't listed here. The Bojack and then Kale Caulifla have already Dokkan Awakened, but they're just not updated on the website yet. So starting next World Tournament would be potentially this guy. If they started doing this for one Dokkan Awakening every World Tournament until the end, then it would be 12 World Tournaments. So those numbers look pretty similar, right? So I am thinking that it's possible that that's what they're going to do, is implement one Dokkan Awakening, 2 EZAs, and then something, either a Dokkan Awakening, an EZA, a new character, or a combination of the two for the Dragon Ball Saga Summon banner as well. So yeah, I think that makes sense as kind of a trajectory of where we could see things going. So I only bring that up because if you're a player that maybe needs one of these newer units and is just kind of like dead and lost in the unfeatured pool and you haven't been able to pull them, maybe you can use what I've just given you as a hint toward how long it'll be before they do eventually come back. Obviously, that is complete speculation, but it just seems to make sense, especially now that we're caught up with the JP version and we're all getting the same content. It would make sense to implement something like that. So yeah, we'll see. I feel like starting at the next World Tournament, if we see the same thing happen again, then we know, we can assume a little bit more that a trend is about to occur, as opposed to this being some random one-off case. So yeah, only time will tell with that. And I'm not too hard-pressed about whatever they do, because obviously I have at least one copy of every single one of these units, so I'm not too worried about it. Whew, okay, lots of talking. So, the last bit here that I want to get into before we finish up is this tweet that was put out by Lotad. Lotad is a very well-known Dokkan player, has gotten first place in the World Tournament quite a few times, and in fact, the subtext for this tweet here is that they are going to be going for first place again on this World Tournament. So good luck to you, Lotad. I know you got what it takes. I'm looking forward to seeing your name there at the top. But Lotad decided to gather all of this knowledge that they have about what it takes to exceed in the World Tournament, and put it into a little thread here for us on Twitter. So we're going to take a look at some of the stuff in here. Some of this is very, very obvious. Some of it's stuff that we've all known, you know, throughout various World Tournaments. But I even learned a couple of things here. So bear with me here, and we will see if there's any, like, valid information that you might care about as well. Okay, so starting at the top here. Higher team cost does not mean more points. This very first point here, I was like ecstatic to see that there, because I made a video on that so long ago. It was I believe January, not of this year, but of last year. January 2023, I made a video on this because it was during the JP 7th anniversary, where the the 8th anniversary. It was during the 8th anniversary where the Part 2 LRs were the Z Gohan and then the Kai Goku. And I remember using the Z Gohan, like, in some World Tournament videos because he's an AoE unit. Yeah, and right around that time, that was when I think one of the videos that had him in it, I made a video conducting an experiment to see if you would get more points using all LRs on a team versus just using TURs and stuff, and I actually debunked that like it wasn't true so long ago, and people have still been talking about that being a strat, even like, you know, major YouTubers like The Truth and stuff, and I was like screaming at my monitor every time I'd hear them say that to the community. I'm like, no, it's wrong, it's actually factually wrong. So anyway, we'll continue reading here. So though there might be some correlation, a higher cost team can score worse than a lower one, which, yes, is true, because inherently, like, what they're saying, what people were implying is that if you use a higher team cost, then you face teams that have a higher team cost, and when we read on a little bit later, you'll see some things that they say that indicate maybe that isn't, like, one-to-one true. Maybe there's, like, some other things in the coding that decide what units you're going to be like facing off against, where team cost might not be the most important thing to pay attention to. Okay, so the points you earn for defeating enemies in world tournaments varies based on the enemy's unit's rarity and level. Defeating enemies with type advantage attacks can earn you bonus points. This also activates on critical hits, so full crit builds on AoEs is highly recommended. This is not something that I knew. You get more points, not just for type advantage attacks, but also for crits. So that makes me very, very happy about the way that I have built some of my World Tournament characters. My Int Piccolo Jr. Giant form, for example, that unit is full crit for me. Yeah, I can actually show you here. Might as well prove it since we're here. So yeah, I've got him at 26 crit. Tons of crit in, with his skill orbs, and then full crit in the hidden potential system. That is perfect. Glad that I have built him that way. And then obviously this guy is major for critting too, because if you're facing 2 or more enemies, he gets a guaranteed crit once. So he's going to be critting all the time. Okay, we'll switch back over here. All right. So the best strategy for World Tournament is to go as fast as possible with AoEs that reliably clear all enemies, obviously. On a good pace, you're earning about 4k points per second. That is so based. Imagine calculating your points earned by the amount of seconds passing. That's how you know this guy's moving quick. So to take this into account when deciding to go out of your way for extra points, usually not worth it. Going out of your way meaning things like using items, things like switching around your character rotation on the field, things like that, right? Okay, so with 1 Piccolo Jr. and 2 Ghost Ushers, you should never be in danger, so stunners and other defensive items aren't needed. Yeah, this is true. I've been doing this for basically every World Tournament since Piccolo Jr.'s come out. Because of his active skill, you almost never need to use items because he just wipes the field away as soon as you spawn in. And then if you do have 2 Ghost Ushers, the most amount of turns possible would be in the preliminaries where you do 3 fights, and it's possible that he's not on fight 1 or fight 3. But then that means he would have to, mathematically, at least be on 1 fight, which could be fight 2, and then you would use the Ghost Ushers on the other 2 fights. So you never need more items than that. Okay, try to avoid using orb changers other than STR Piccolo, as the animations can slow you down. Yes, STR Piccolo is the de facto best orb changer to use because he's guaranteed to kill all the enemies. Because he has the guaranteed crit, even if you only select 1 orb, because he is a nuking style unit that needs more orbs to do more damage, even if you only select 1 orb, if you're on times 30 on the finals, he, because of the guaranteed crits, will still one-shot even the most tanky AGL enemies that you're going to face off against. So, and also the amount of time that it takes his animation to run for the whole super attack effect, plus the 7 splashes that happen after you attack each enemy one at a time. His animation is so much faster than most of the other units that have AoEs, that it's just worthwhile using him. The only unit in the game that you actually save time on, even though the splashes take longer, is Piccolo Jr. But that's because you can turn the animation off for his because it's an active skill, so you don't have to watch the animation of the actual super attack itself. Okay, next thing here. So now we're going to be talking about the seed meta. This goes into greater detail about that whole theory about how to get the most points based on the characters that you're bringing and who you're going to fight and stuff. So the enemies you face are tied to your team composition. If you change your team, you'll face different enemies. The enemies a team faces are universal, so you can copy a team with higher scoring enemies. You'll also find those same enemies. So think of it like Pokemon Go, for instance. If you've ever played Pokemon Go, if someone is with you playing Pokemon Go, when they show up at a Pokestop and then a little whatever Pokemon shows up, that same exact Pokemon will show up in the same spot for you. It's that's not a client side decision. It's the same across the server, right? So this means that if someone recommends a team to you because they're facing off against priority teams that you would want to face off against, go ahead and use the team they're using, because that will absolutely reflect the same way for you. Okay, if your team has 4 to 5 AoE units, you can use the last slot to re-roll your enemies by changing it to different units between wins. So this is kind of interesting. Let me go ahead and read. Let's see. Okay, let me read a couple more, and then we'll take a little intermission to go back in game. So look out for enemies with a lot of LRs and easy ATURs as their high scoring, while uneasy ATURs and other low rarities are low scoring. To see how well the enemy, how well an enemy scores points on the screen right after the KO, check the battle score at the very top. Okay, and then the maximum battle score is almost 40k, so that's just a good reference point to know if you're getting like a lot or little. Between 30 and 40k is what you want. Total possible to get a total of 100k in the preliminaries because you're doing 3 fights, right? And then an optimized seed can bring your points to win from 102 to 105 million, which is obviously very, very marginal. If you're thinking about being someone that's only getting your 23 million points and then stopping, that is on average 23 wins, right? Because you are getting about 1 million. So this is not even going to be enough of a bonus to save you one whole run between, getting those. So a lot of this stuff is very, very finite, and it's only for those like maxed out, like top tier accounts that are trying to grind super hard to do really, really well in the World Tournament. I suppose I should have prefaced that prior to, explaining everything I just explained, but yeah, like I would say before even taking any of these tips, the very first tip is play all day, every day, right? Because like the more you play it, that you're going to be doing better. So if you're trying to like minusculely get like a few more points here and there from these tips, by all means go for it. But I think you're going to have a much better time if you just play it more, and then you'll easily obtain the points you need to get. Okay, so I think this one, okay, so this is going into like the absolute best strategy, which again is so finite. I don't even think it's something that I would bother using, for one very, very clear specific reason. So let's go through it first, and then I will give my counterpoint. So, the current best team here. First, I might as well show you the team. So this is what he has listed as the very best team for World Tournament. So you notice he's got 5 AoE units on here, and then Future Gohan. So, let's go ahead and read through here and see exactly why. So it is the fastest and highest scoring known team for global World Tournaments. So, fastest makes sense because it's an Int Piccolo Jr. team. Basically, every team with him on it is going to be the fastest, earning these amount of points per win. Very nice. So Lotad, Discord, and Baba Yaga are 3 people who I believe all 3 of them have achieved first place in the World Tournament. I know Discord and Lotad definitely have. Maybe Baba Yaga's been close. But yeah, so quite a few of the top grinders have been using this team. It looks like for like the last 4 World Tournaments or so. So there's definitely some, some field testing that's happened with this team. So with this team setup, you don't need to choose a friend unit. You have 5 AoE units. And that is all you need because 6 and 7 can be non-AoE units, which means it doesn't matter what your rotations are at all. You're always going to have at least 1 AoE unit on the rotation. That is a rule that I follow with my teams as well. I always want to make sure to have only 2 non-AoE units, so you can never get caught with a turn that you can't just finish all the enemies. That takes so much time away from you. And this is a piece of this that really piques my curiosity, this line right here. You'll eventually get AoEs as auto friends. This one is confusing to me. So when we jump in game, I'll talk about that a little bit. So he says, if you don't have these exact same 6 units, the strategy won't work. That's very important, right? Because of the part he was talking about before, where it is server-sided. So the exact same team is going to proc the same things across the board. So you have to have these exact 6 units. So you'll have to find another seed by replacing LR Future Gohan if you're confused about why the team is like this. There's a pinned message explaining how World Tournament seed meta works. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so there is probably a little bit deeper things in here about like the seed meta, stuff that I'm not even too familiar with about why he maybe picked these specific units. Here's where I'm going to get into my counter example. So what he's telling you off the bat is that the one useless unit on this team is the future Gohan, because he's not doing anything to provide like attack support or anything. So if you can build this team very close, but you're not getting the right seed, and future Gohan is on your team, then he's saying maybe try switching out future Gohan, like put STR Bulma on there, put Yajirobe, put some random support unit that's going to do something for you, you know, that is going to do better for you than this one, and then maybe the seed will change. You'll be facing teams with more LRs and easy aid units on them, and then you'll be good. Okay. So, oh, yeah. So I didn't even say. My counter example. Or my counterpoint, rather. So, I use a World Tournament team that is pretty similar to this. We actually just had it up on screen. This is the team right here, at the bottom. So obviously, like, I'm using Piccolo Jr., and then I'm also using the STR Piccolo. But then I've opted to keep the Dragon Ball Super Broly on here, just because I never need, like, Ki or anything with him. He's always maxed out. And then this Gotank's actually just easy aid, and he's decent as well, so I threw him on the team as well. Prior to this World Tournament, I didn't have him there. I had the Tech Great Ape Vegeta, this guy. I had him on the team, but he actually needs to reach his 18 Ki in order to get the AoE. So I found that oftentimes I would get a rotation of, you know, of both Ginyus. So we'd get the Ginyu Force here, the Ginyu Force here, and then we would get him. And he didn't have enough Ki, so I would always have to use an item in order to make sure that he got his 18 Ki super. So a lot of the times I would be using a Ghost Usher on that turn, as well as a Fruit of the Tree of Might. And reordering the characters to make sure that he was in the first slot. So that turn just always took a lot of time for me to get through. And that turn, you know, if I'm grinding 200 million, 300 million points, would come up quite a bit throughout the World Tournament, and I hated doing that. This team is going to suffer that exact same way, because in order to get the AoE attack for both the Great Ape Vegeta and the Majin Vegeta, you need to be at 18 Ki. So you're going to have to do that on these turns, right? And then why I don't like using the Vegeta and Nappa is because they only have the AoE attack when they're up to 17 Ki. If they break over into 18 Ki, it's now a single targeted enemy attack. So you either have to hope for an additional and wait through the animation to kill one enemy, or you're not going to get the AoE, and then you have to wait for one of your other units on the rotation to do it, which obviously also puts you in danger if you haven't used a Ghost Usher and they get attacked by somebody after attacking, all of that stuff, right? So that's kind of the stuff that I see as a problem, quote-unquote problem with this team, where I think that the minuscule amount of increases that you're getting from this strategy that's, you know, showing you all of this stuff, I think that the team you have to use in order to get there doesn't give you enough of a benefit to equal out the wasted time for a lot of the other stuff you're doing. So he's going to go into greater detail in this final section down here and talk about that. So let's read through it. Support items. Ghost Usher is a must to avoid getting hit on turns without Piccolo Jr. Absolutely. We already talked about that part. Chi-Lai is a must. The Chi-Lai nuking item is a must to nuke with Majin Vegeta and Ape Vegeta. So Chi-Lai changes STR, or it changes a random type of orb into AGL orbs, and then gives you 5% attack per AGL orb obtained that turn. It's the same as like the Takoyaki does for tech, and the Dubura Cookie does for physical, and so on. So he's saying you're going to want that item because of exactly what I was explaining. These units are not going to be doing their AoEs on their own. You're going to constantly need to depend on items in order to get them to do their AoEs. So you're wasting time there for sure. Okay, so then the Fruit of the Tree of Might, which gives you 3 Ki for all enemies, and then for all allies for 3 turns. And then the Shoe, I don't know exactly, but I'm assuming it's 3 Ki maybe for 1 turn. So yeah, to ensure super attacks, because again, this is the type of team where you need that to happen, right? So you want to have those on there just in case, which I always have Fruit of the Tree of Might and Ghost Usher anyway, just because Ki and not getting hit are the 2 most important things to make sure of every turn, right? Okay, and then Takoyaki and other nuking items if Chi-Lai fails. Okay, and then fails as in because when you use it, it's changing a random type of orb, which means there's a very high likelihood, if you don't have every type of orb on the field to start with, that the type of orb it changes doesn't even exist there, and then it doesn't change any orbs for you. So you're going to want to have other items as well, just to make sure. And then it says attack boosting items like Bulma to ensure kills. But we do specify not worth the time cost, right? Which is kind of my main point that I've been going into for the last 5 minutes here. So yeah, a lot of these items and stuff we had just discovered. So let me take you back a little bit. A very, very long time ago, when we were doing world tournaments, you had to use items because we didn't have these OP units that could effectively do this with no items, basically until Int Piccolo Jr., right? Then we figured out a strat with some very, very special units that exist in the game. There's 2 of them. It's a Tech Jocko and an Int Chaozu. So this is the Tech Jocko here. So he has a very simple passive, May Stun all enemies. I'm sure most of you know what this guy does anyway, but we'll just go through it anyway. So May Stun all enemies. What that actually means is the very first time that he shows up, he guaranteed stuns all enemies and then never does it again. So if you have him on your team, it's perfect because you only have 1 turn fights. If he shows up, that's a free Ghost Usher that you didn't have to spend the time to actually use the Ghost Usher. It's just there for you, and then, yeah, and now you could move on with no items. People loved using, myself included, the Jocko and the Int Chaozu for a very long time, simply because it was way quicker in the World Tournament, right? Because you didn't have to rely on items. So it is funny that the team I'm using now, just wanted to show you this is the Int Chaozu, if you didn't already know. But yeah, it's very funny that my team, you know, doesn't rely on items because, well, I mean, I do use Ghost Ushers sometimes, but because of the whole Int Piccolo Jr. thing, you don't really need the items. So it's interesting to kind of force yourself back into a meta where now, in order to get the AoEs to happen, you're reintroducing using items. So with this team build, it's much more about, you know, using items to make sure the attacks happen properly and that you're actually killing the enemies rather than, you know, using support items to make sure that you don't get hit. So yeah, with the way that my team is set up for the World Tournament, I still have the proper support units on with the LR Ginyus, so I don't have to worry about my units not actually defeating the enemies and stuff. So yeah, I think that's gonna pretty much wrap up my little rant here for the World Tournament. Hopefully that was some good information. It seems like there are some changes, you know, coming to the World Tournament meta and the World Tournament like system that they are putting out. So yeah, we'll have to stay tuned and see what other goodies happen. Good luck with your guys' grind. Feel free to comment down below and let me know how you're feeling about any of the you know, changes to the World Tournament system that they did. If you're liking not having to grind as hard and whatnot, I would love to hear from you guys. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you guys back in a couple days to do the World Tournament summons once the World Tournament completes. Thank you guys so much, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace!